Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari. So Namo Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Krishna Das Goswaminati Namane. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminati Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Um, so we'll just start with Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita from where we finished off yesterday. Prabhupada explained that the material world is a place of misery. Nature is cruel. In America, President Kennedy was thought to be the most fortunate, happy man honored throughout the world. But within a second, Prabhupada loudly snapped his fingers. He was finished. Temporary. Now, what is his position? Where is he? If life is eternal, if the living entity is eternal, where he has gone, what he is doing, is he happy or is he distressed? He is born in America or China. Nobody can say. But it is a fact that as living entity, he is eternal, he is existing. Prabhupada explained the transmigration of the soul. Then again, he requested, try to understand it, and if it is nice to you, take it up. You're after something very nice. Is my proposal unreasonable? The two beetles glanced at one another, but didn't answer. Prabhupada gave a soft, amused laugh. You're all intelligent boys. Try to understand it. Prabhupada spoke of the importance of music in the Vedas. The Samaveda, he said, is full of music. Followers of the Samaveda are always in music. Through musical vibration, they're approaching the Supreme. He then sang slowly 3 verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Materna Krishna Paradasvatova Mito Abhipadayeta Griha Vratanam Adanta Gobe Vishatam Tamishram Puna Punascharvita Charvanam Nate Vidusvartagatim Hi Vishnum Durasayaya Bahir Artham Anina Andayatandir Upani Yamanas Tepe Satantrayam Uru Damni Bada Nasam Matis Tavat Urugram Mangrim Sprisati Anartha Pagamo Yadartha Mahayasam Padarajo Abhishekam Nishkinchanam Navrinitayavat. So the translation of this verse is because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew which has already been chewed. Their inclinations towards Krishna are never aroused, either by the instructions of others or by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life and who have therefore accepted as their leaders or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. As blind men guided by another blind man miss the right path and fall into a ditch, materially attached men led by another materially attached man are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. Unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely freed from material contamination, persons very much inclined towards materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, in this way can one be freed from material contamination. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 5, verses 30 to 32. Then Prabhupada asked his guests what philosophy they were following. Following? John asked. We don't we don't follow anything, Yoko said. We're just living. We've done meditation, said George, or I do my meditation, mantra meditation. They began to ask questions, the same questions Prabhupada had heard so many times before. After hearing Prabhupada's explanation of Brahman, the all-pervading spiritual energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Yoko doubted whether Brahman could remain pure and not deteriorate in time. Prabhupada advised that she would have to become a serious student before she could actually understand spiritual philosophy. John and Yoko, being devoted eclectics, had difficulty accepting Prabhupada's concept of Vedic authority. John, we still have to keep sifting through, like through sand, to see who's got the best. Prabhupada, no. One thing you try to understand, why these people, if Krishna is not the supreme authority, why they are taking Krishna's book and translating? Why don't you try to understand? George, I'm not saying Krishna isn't the supreme. I believe that. There is a misunderstanding about the translation of the Sanskrit Gita into English, and I was saying that there are many versions, and I think we thought you were trying to say your version, your translation, was the authority, and that the other translations were not. But we didn't really have misunderstanding as to the identity of Krishna. Prabhupada, that's all right. If you believe Krishna is a supreme personality of Godhead, if you believe Krishna is a supreme Lord, if that is your version, then you have to see who is most addicted to Krishna. These people are 24 hours chanting Krishna, and another person who has not a single word Krishna. How can he become a devotee of Krishna? How can he who does not utter even the name of Krishna become a representative of Krishna? If Krishna is authority and that is accepted, therefore those who are directly addicted to Krishna, they are authorities. After more than an hour of conversation, Prabhupada distributed some prasadam to John, George, Yoko, and the few disciples in his room. If these shrestras were to take up Krishna consciousness, that would be good for them, and many others also. He had done his duty and provided them the opportunity. It was Krishna's message, and to accept it or not was now up to them. John said he had something to do, and he excused himself. As everyone was leaving, Yoko, walking down the stairs, turned to John and said, "Look at how simply he's living. Could you live like that?" In the evening, Prabhupada sat with three couples, Shyamasundar and Malati, Gurudas and Yamuna, and Mukunda and Janaki. After a year's separation, they were happily with Prabhupada, and he was happy to be with them. The love they shared and their mutual satisfaction at being together was based on a unifying desire to establish Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement in this important city. Now that Prabhupada had come to London, work would not slacken. It would increase under his expert guidance. Prabhupada could daily instruct the men on organizing more London preaching, and they could report to him as necessary. The women could also directly serve him, cleaning his quarters, washing and ironing his laundry, and cooking his meals. No one can afford a house like this in England anymore, Prabhupada said. England has gone down. Now these young boys own a place like this, and we're here. Prabhupada, Shamsundar spoke up. Our record sold 50,000 copies yesterday. Oh, Prabhupada's eyes widened. Very big business. Prabhupada said that their money and energy should go towards opening the temple in the city. Now they were living comfortably on this aristocratic estate in the suburbs, and certainly they should try to involve these important celebrities in Krishna consciousness as far as possible. But the main business should be to open a temple in the city. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had preferred to establish temples in the cities where the people were. Of course, if John could give this place to Krishna, and if the devotees could maintain cows and cultivate the land, as in New Vrindavan, then that would be a different matter. They would have to see what Krishna desired. Prabhupada was sorry that some of his disciples were obliged to work full-time renovating the estate in exchange for their stay. Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, he said, had the serious work of cultivating spiritual knowledge and teaching it to others, and they deserve the respect and support of the rest of society. The arrangement at first seemed more business than charity, but they should tolerate it as a temporary situation. Prabhupada talked with Shyamasundar, Mukunda, and Gurudas about their struggles to get housing permits and renovate the temple downtown. Shyamsundar had been right. Prabhupada said, to begin renovating the temple, Krishna would protect their investment. When Prabhupada learned that they had secured a series of public lectures that would commit him to 3 months in London, he smiled. He would be glad to stay and preach in England, he said, for as long as it took to open the London Centre. Prabhupada commended his 6 London pioneers on succeeding where his sannyasi godbrothers had failed. He told them that because they had chanted Hare Krishna with faith, they had succeeded. They were not great scholars or renunciants, yet they had faith in the holy name and the order of their spiritual master. Prabhupada said that he also was not a great scholar, but that he had staunch faith, the real requirement for spiritual success. A devotee could go to many places and accomplish many things, Prabhupada said, but unless he was free of material motives, he would not be able to implant the seed of bhakti into the hearts of others. Prabhupada cited Sivananda, who had gone alone to Hamburg and tried his best with faith in his spiritual master. Now Krishna was blessing Sivananda with a little success. A storefront temple, newly recruited devotees, and an interested professor, and other guests coming and chanting. Even one lone preacher could accomplish many things for Krishna, provided the preacher was free from sense gratification, desire for profit, adoration, and distinction. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And just moving on to the Bhagavatam verse. We'll just recite this verse and then the verse. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Shinvatam swakatha Krishna punya shravana kirtanam vidyantastohiya bhadrani vidunoti surit satam. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. And Srimad Bhagavatam 559, Yada mano hridaya granthirasya karmanu badodridha aslateta tada jana samparivartate asmad mukta param yati atihaya hitum. Would anyone else like to read the verse, please?
Hare Krishna Mataji, I am.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Jada mano hridaya granthirasya karmanubaddha drira aslatheta tada janah sampravivartate smad muktaha param yatta tihaya hetum. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Anyone else? Hare Krishna.
Yada mano hridaya granthirasya karmanubadha dridho aslatheta tada janah samparivartate asmat muktah param yatta tihaya hetum. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
यदा मनोहृदयगन्धिरस्य कर्मानुबद्धो दृढ आश्लथेत तदा जनः सम्परिवर्तते अस्मात् मुक्तः परं यात्यतिहाय हेतुम्. हरे कृष्ण.
हरे कृष्ण. धन्यवाद. प्रणाम.
Pranam.
यदा मनो हृदय ग्रंथिरस्य कर्मानुबद्धो दृढ आश्लथेत तदा जनः सम्परिवर्तते अस्मात् मुक्तः परं यात्याथि हया हेतुम्. Thank you, Hare Krishna, beta.
Somebody else would like to read the verse? Okay, I think then we'll move on to word translation. Yada, when, mana, the mind, hridaya granthi, the knot in the heart, asya, of this person, karma anubadha, bound by the results of his past deeds, dridha, very strong, ashlatheta, becomes slackened, tada, at that time, jana, the conditioned soul, samparivartate, turns away, asmat, from his attachment for sex life, mukta, liberated, param, to the transcendental world, yati, goes, atihaya, giving up, hetum, the original cause. Translation: when the strong knot in the heart of a person implicated in material life due to the past action is slackened, one turns away from his attachment to home, wife, and children. In this way, one gives up the basic principle of illusion, I and mine, and becomes liberated. Thus, one goes to the transcendental world. And purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. When by associating with sadhus and engaging in devotional service, one is gradually freed from the material conception due to knowledge, practice, and detachment. The knot of attachment in the heart is slackened, thus one can get free from conditional life and become eligible to return home back to Godhead. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimate Krsna Kantha Dasi Namane. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyata Deshatari. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Ram. So the summary of the translation and the purport is that when the knot in the mind and the heart gets slackened, then the conditioned soul turns away from home or their material life, and this knot gets slackened by detachment, and also by engaging in devotional service and the association of sadhus. When we were reading Srila Prabhupada Lila Amrita, and the verses that came up 7, 5, 30, and 32, most likely 7, 5, 30, and 31, the translation was also because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclinations towards Krishna are never aroused, either by instructions of others, by their own efforts, or by a combination of both. Persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life and who have therefore accepted as their leaders or guru a similar blind man attached to external sense objects cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home back to Godhead and engage in the service of Lord Vishnu. As blind men guided by another blind man miss the right path and fall into a ditch, materially attached men led by another materially attached man are bound by the ropes of fruits of labor, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in the materialistic life, suffering threefold miseries. And also in Srila Prabhupada Lila Amrita, about the 6 London pioneers, where he says that because they had chanted Hare Krishna with faith, they had succeeded. And it was basically just because of chanting and following the orders of the spiritual master, being free from sense gratification and the the desire for profits, adoration, and distinction. And this is also further described in the next text, 10 to 13, which is also mainly summarized into 6 things. Finding a spiritual master, which again, going back to that verse from Srila Prabhupada Lila Amrita, is finding a spiritual master who is not a similar blind man running through, not a similar blind man running to the material objects or the material association, placing faith and love in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and detesting sense gratification and giving up endeavor for sense enjoyment, engaging in the service of the Lord and chanting and hearing, being equal to all and being the same in pain and pleasure, because both of them are temporary. So the scene in this verse is that Rishabdev is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he has 100 sons. And just before his disconnection from worldly affairs, he is instructing and preparing them to become qualified to take on the throne. And his sons, they aren't children, they are all adults. And he is instructing them in the same way that Bhishma instructed Yudhishthir on the battlefield of Kurukshetra in Canto 1, Chapter 9. And in both these scenarios, Rishabdev and Bhishma Dev, they're educating Rishabdev is educating his sons, Bhishma Dev is educating Yudhishthir Maharaj. And there are 2 types of education, one being universal and the other being unique. So universal is also mainly most of the instructions that we see in the Srimad Bhagavatam, because they're universal regardless of the psychophysical nature of whoever's receiving it, whoever's reading it afterwards. And then unique, it's unique to that particular psychophysical nature. So these universal education would be the principles to live through. So, and again, and another example in this is that in the olden days, students used to live in the Guru's ashram and the Gurukul, and the Gurus, they were empowered by Krishna to pass on the principles of character and quality, which even according to Srila Prabhupada is also the primary purpose of education, to be able to have the character, have the quality, and then when you go out, you can do multiple things. And even in the material sense, in terms of, I guess, uni and career, that's also known as, I guess, soft skills, transferable skills. And with these skills, we can learn quickly and we can learn so many things. However, even though there have been quotes about, this does not mean that only spiritual education should be followed and material education should be scraped. Because to be able to perform devotional service properly, one needs to be comfortable enough to a certain level, and that yes, that can come through, I guess, studying, working. But then again, we also need to be able to differentiate that what we're learning or what we're doing that is actually proper, instead of or the lack. However, we also need to understand that yes, material education or the lack could also lead to some qualityless demoniac behavior, as we can see with whatever's happening in the news or in the world outside. So back to universal education. Because universal education is universal, regardless of looking at the psychophysical nature. So the same way Rishabdev has got 100 sons, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they belong to the same ashram, and thus he was giving this universal education, so it could be utilized for any varna and for any ashram. And now moving on to attachment, we we can be and we are attached to people around us, to things around us. And this attachment, however, differs from being just simply responsible. Being attached comes from emotional connection, comes from the need to be in physical proximity and security, just similar to how a child is attached to the mum. They're emotionally connected. They want to be in physical proximity, and they have this, I guess, this sense of security when they're around the mum. And whereas responsibility is simply the fulfilling of obligations, but there is no problem in being attached. As long as our first attachment is the attachment to Krishna, then automatically the attachment to the other living entities will follow. And when there is proper attachment, then automatically proper responsibility will follow. Even our attachment to Krishna at this stage, at least for me, it's very transactional. And because with Krishna, with whom we have the ultimate relationship, it's very transactional. This is also shown in our attachment or our dealings with other people that also tends to be very transactional. And again, we can bring the example of the mothers in this, where there's one mom that's thankful to Krishna for this child, considering the child as Krishna's blessings. She's attached to it, attached to the child. And the responsibility towards the child would be genuine, and it won't just be, I'm fulfilling this obligation just for the sake of doing it, as compared to another who will consider the child a burden. And because of this, there won't be any attachment, or even if there is any attachment, it would be very, very tainted. And because attachment's tainted, responsibility automatically would be subpar and won't follow, which unfortunately, again, is a lot of the things that we see in the world now with so many of news cases, etc., etc. So the main idea of cutting the knot of attachment is cutting off the illusory attachment. And illusory attachment is the attachment without Krishna. So illusory, sorry, just excuse me. Illusory attachment is the one which is with false ego, or the false attachment to position of being the enjoyer, along with other attachments, along with other elements such as senses, mind, and intelligence. And then zooming into the material world with the sense that with enjoyer, the senses are meant to enjoy, the mind's meant to enjoy. The intelligence is telling the mind that do this, then your senses would be gratified. And this is based on the principle of false ego that I'm the enjoyer. And yes, and all of these things around are to gratify our senses. So cutting this knot of attachment is hearing and chanting in good association. This good association does not also necessarily mean being in proximity with just other people, but it's also cultivating genuine and meaningful relationships, which is built on trust, mutual growth, and being authentic. And just on this note, Gurudev, His Holiness Bhara Krishna Maharaj, once said that association could be in books, or association could be in, I guess, lectures, just as long as it's something that keeps us attached. And it's also, being in this material world, it's also being like a lotus, of, being part of it, growing in the mud, still growing and still blooming, but not letting any of the mud come in, or any of the negativity or anything, or that sense of false illusion come in. So this was a very short verse. Even some of the lectures that I was hearing on this, they were quite short on it. So these are all the points that I had, but if there's anything else that anyone else would like to add, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Thank you very much for a very nice class, Krishna Kantha. Very well prepared. I like the point you said about it. It really struck home that when your relationship with Krishna or your service to Krishna is transactional, then automatically our relationships in this world are also transactional. You know, we're looking at everything from what is in it for me, and
Yes.
never what is in it for the other person, or it's not in genuine love.
Yes.
So genuine love comes only from loving Krishna. I like that point very much. It's my takeaway for today. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Mataji, Hare Krishna.
I have a question, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You said that love with Krishna, we have transactional love, but what to do when we are already, since childhood, we learn to go and ask from Krishna. And in that process of going and asking from Krishna, we don't even know how we become transactional towards Krishna. So, how to revert that process?
I think the best way to revert that process would be that, yes, we can pray to Krishna that this is what I want. I'm not sure if this thing that I want, if that's good for me or not. But at the end of the day, you know, and if it's not meant for me, then please also, I guess, give me the strength to just detach away from it, and telling ourselves that yes, it's whatever we're thinking of, it's either for us now or there's something else better that's planned. And Krishna, at the end of the day, he's the ultimate father, ultimate protector, ultimate provider. So whatever he has in store for us would be something that's best for us, and just being in that mindset, reminding us again and again. But I think someone else would also be able to add more to that.
So basically, we are asking Krishna that whatever I'm asking, if it is for my greatest benefit, give it to me. Otherwise, please detach me from this. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, that is how I see it. But then at the end of it, I also think that whatever is meant to be, that will come through, regardless of us praying to Krishna or not. And at the end of the day, it is at the end of the day, whatever is provided, it is through Krishna, and we also need to express gratitude for that.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kantha, I'd just like to add 1 or 2 points. Regarding the transaction dealing with Krishna, I mean, when a child is small, I mean, they only depend on the parents, they to provide everything. So, of course, that relation is more transactional. But as the child grows up and matures, the child wants to serve the parents. So I think in a similar situation, the devotees initially, they join, they have some expectation, and by chanting, serving the devotees, serving the deities, or the purification takes place and they become more mature. So the stage is like purification stage. So eventually they'll say, okay, Krishna has provided something for me. Let me serve him out of love. So then the transactional relation diminishes, and then comes the point of Prema Bhakti. I mean, this is a higher stage. So we are on a journey, and as the purification takes place, this transactional will diminish, and hopefully one day we'll be pure devotees serving Krishna without any expectation. That's one way of looking at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Anybody else? We got still a few minutes before we wind up. Okay, doesn't seem to be children in the class here.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Okay, go ahead, Prabhu.
Yeah, very good point, Prabhu. You mentioned. I just wanted to add to what you just mentioned. Is as Radha Padma Mataji was mentioning, we are taught or we are accustomed to asking and getting into a transactional relationship because of the people or the parents and whoever is around us at that stage. So we are associating with people who have a transactional relationship. So automatically we develop a transactional relationship, which is in one way looking at it good because at least we are transacting with the Lord. But eventually when we meet devotees, when we start associating with devotees, we see that their relationship is not just transactional. They are wanting to serve. The whole idea of them is to serve, whether for some motive or not doesn't matter, but they're wanting to serve. So when we associate with such devotees, automatically the transactional relationship starts diminishing and the attitude of service takes more precedence, and then we start progressing further until we come to the stage of kind of selfless relationship rather than a transactional. So I just wanted to add that point. Is association is key. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
So
Thank,
I think
thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, so it doesn't seem to be any more comments. So we're in the class here. Vancha kalpadurubhesha kipavasindurubhesha
Evacha patitanam Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Krsna Kantha Mataji ki
Ki
jai.
jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Ki jai.
Good.
Good, Nandi.